Welcome to Indie Insights, where we play games with the developers. I am Luis. We are here with MK Schmidt, otherwise Michael Schmidt, and we got Immorpher, otherwise known as Jake, onto the control for today. So, Mike, how you doing?
Pretty good, thank you. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. I got my nice red shirt that is probably a little too bright for most people, but hell with it. We're gonna have fun anyway. Jake, how you feeling? You ready
Great.
to?
I'm happy that Mike got on and is willing to share his game Paradox Vector with us. I'm a big fan of first-person shooters, and this is perhaps one of the most unique ones I've ever seen.
Right. Well, as Jake's telling us, we are going to be diving into Paradox Vector. I've had my own share to play this game a little bit. Absolute charm. I am so ready to hear what the hell was going through your mind when you did something this awesome, because it really is its own world. And I have other questions that I want to dive into, but before that, let's go ahead and get a little sample. Let's see what Jake can show us to kind of give us a little insight on this too.
Looks like it looks like we start off in a cold cell. I have a sense of falling, and as you see, look at the graphics are very interesting. Ready?
Right away, the whole Tron thing and all that. I'm seeing a big comeback with that, and I'm loving every single second of it. And I'm wondering what it was that made you want to immediately go for this kind of like a old school graphic graph look. Almost like the original 3D, you know?
Back in the 80s, we would call these vector graphics. And it was literally a different type of graphics from what we know today as raster graphics. Like, all monitors now are like made up of little squares, like little pixels. But back then, there was no pixels in the vector hardware. It was a laser that drew the lines. So you were limited to have these single lines and very few colors to define the game, but it had a very unique look. And I remember going to the arcades, and my brother would play these vector graphics games like Battlezone and Tail Gunner, and I thought they were like way too serious for me as a kid. Like, they were way too like intimidating back then. And so that nostalgia for that style just stayed with me. And I noticed like it wasn't really used a lot recently, so figured.
Like I said, I'm getting like I'm seeing a good comeback of these kinds of games, especially in the indie world, and I think that that's something that a lot of like bigger name productions are kind of missing out on. Like they kind of try when they bring back Tron and everything. You're still kind of missing the charm of this original kind of feel for these old school 80s games and stuff like that. Again, we are seeing that resurgence. This one in particular, it really made me feel that there was that original 80s kind of playthrough, but at the same time, I really like the update for it's unforgiving. It is not going to hold your hand, and I love that so much.
From the gameplay standpoint, I never really made a proper shooter before. I have another first-person shooter called Star Explorers, but that's really more focused on exploration, and the combat is very minimal and very pretty simple and straightforward. This one I tried to get a little bit more like Doom, like Quake type of gameplay. I'm not saying I achieved that level by any means, but that's what I was going for. I would say Quake, the first Quake, I played through it as I was developing this. I played through it just to get a feel for the level design and stuff like that, just to get some inspiration. And I didn't like copy it directly, but I got a lot of ideas from doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because it doesn't feel like it's fast paced, and at the same time, when you're doing it yourself, it is intensely fast paced. You can't stand still. Oh man, sorry. Go ahead.
These enemies have good aim. They can get you.
They're just aim bots. Like, they just shoot right at you, but the bullets are relatively slow. So I kind of tried to balance it out that way.
Yes.
And that's what I was talking about. Is later on when we get to other creatures and stuff like that, they're so fast. It feels intimidating, but I kind of view even the action as part of the equation, part of learn it like this right here. It feels like that's part of solving the puzzle. That everything is a puzzle, including the monsters that you're fighting or robots.
Yeah, just trying to get a hold of this guy. Oh, I don't want to go in there.
I think there was I don't know how to describe it. The game was not a commercial success. It didn't do as well as I had hoped for, which is pretty standard, for indie games these days. Nobody, we always hope to, be the next Dusk or whatever, but that doesn't happen very often. And I think part of it had to do with the graphics, because this style goes back further than first-person shooters, right? Like the first-person shooter nostalgia is from the 90s, whereas this style of graphics is from the early 80s and maybe late 70s. So it's really two different genres, and I thought a mashup would be really I was interested in it. But I don't know how other people.
It's really fascinating for me because I remember as a kid going to arcades. It's a little bit rare there these days, unless you're going to one of those barcades and stuff. And if you find the really old machines, as you said, you get the vector graphics.
Yeah.
And it's rare to find. And I remember there's that console called the Vectrex.
Vectrex, yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, I need to get out of here. It sounds like.
There you are. That when I first got that alarm scared the hell out of me. What does this mean? What did they do? No, I thought that was the point. And that's what I mean by it's unforgiving in that kind of regard. I typically am not a huge fan of punishing kind of games. Not that this is punishing, but it feels like punishing.
I just thought of it as, I don't know. I think it was Ty from In the Keep, and he pointed out every single one of your enemies explodes when you shoot. I was like,
if you're too close.
You're right. I didn't really plan that. It just kind of happened. But
what I mean by
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that what I mean by the punishing aspect is that it almost feels like because you're learning as you're going, and you're kind of memorizing certain aspects of it, but because it's still changing up on you, it's not muscle memory necessarily. Just know that if I run into this room, I know that robot that is too fast is going to be right there, so I have to wait for it to come at me. So you're still positioning yourself, but what I love about it is that it's not just muscle memory. It is, again, part of solving that puzzle. I can't stand still. I have to move over here. I have to move over here. So it's so much more rewarding when you actually do get past that. And so every single room, every single level, even when you die and you have to go all the way back, it doesn't make it feel so bad. Because you know that when you get to the next point, all you're doing is just learning a new process, and that process takes you through to the next room.
There's also saving. You can save the game at any point.
There's quick saving, yes.
Yeah, but I think I think in the time since I made this game, I learned that I maybe made a mistake from a game design point of view, which is I wanted to make it challenging, and I made it challenging for me as a developer. Whereas you're not supposed to do that. That's a design flaw, you could say. So it's probably, like you said, maybe a little too punishing at times. And then after I realized that, and I had some people play test it, I did kind of remove some stuff, and I kept them in the hard mode. If you play hard mode, that's how I originally designed the game. But I did, reduce some of the difficulty. But maybe it's one of those things that if you like it, you'll play it, I think, and you'll try to get through, and you'll feel that challenge. And if you're not feeling the vibe of it, then the difficulty will turn you off, probably. But, yeah.
Okay. It's a bit open world.
Yeah, there's a little what you call like a hub world, between the different dungeons.
I mean, that's very reminiscent of Metroid, which, I mean, having like the power blaster and all that kind of stuff too.
Sure.
And I love that part of the challenge as well, that you go back after you upgrade, and even when you go back, those same monsters are still kind of a challenge.
Right. Yeah, and that Metroid Prime is definitely an influence here. Because of that very idea of going back and unlocking things and discovering new useful items and stuff.
Yeah.
Which it didn't start off that way. I originally made the game and it was just level, level 1, level 2, level 3, and there was no hub world or anything or unlocking of stuff. I kind of just decided at one point, I want to make this more of an adventure than just shooting stuff. So I added those elements, and it took about a year longer than I had originally planned. But I thought it was worth it.
I love it, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does remind me a lot of Metroid Prime that the enemies are based on their environments. They're part of the environment. The first-person shooters, the enemies are there more as like a challenge in the environment. But here, just like Metroid, you have like living creatures and robots in these dungeons that feel like this is where they belong.
Right. Well, these are like a biomechanical sort of enemies, right? I don't want to give away, spoilers.
Yeah,
the lore of
no spoilers
too much.
Yeah, I read some of the storyline, and it seems like we're going way, way back in time.
Right. It's actually, I don't know if you guys have read any H.P. Lovecraft. But The Mountains of Madness, this is my imagined kind of not that serious sort of sequel to that story, where the people who discovered the ancient race of aliens that lived at the South Pole, one of them, he tried to, tell the world about it, and no one believed him, and he kind of went mad. And as his daughter, because you're his daughter in this game, you are trying to, you made a time machine in order to go back to the past and prove and bring back some kind of proof that this alien civilization existed. That's the made-up lore in a nutshell.
I got out of there by the skin of my teeth.
Yeah.
I'm watching you just literally running. You're like, no bullets!
I was like, oh no, please don't hurt me.
If you look up here, you'll notice that you're upside down in the hub world. And
okay, now this was something I really wanted to get into. Sure. And Jake, look down real quick. Not on the ground, like on the literal what you're walking on.
Oh yeah,
there's this spiral path that you got. Now I've noticed this also in some of your artwork.
Yeah,
that you use a lot of spiral in your stuff, and I'm wondering, is that like a lateralis kind of a thing? Like as a coder, is that part of like? Are you a big math guy, or is it more of just like the design? What is it specifically?
I love math. I love math as a concept. I'm not very good at it. So, I can figure stuff out and I can solve problems. But once I've solved them, I forget it. Like I have the answer and I use it in my code or whatever, and then the math disappears from my brain. Like, that's kind of how I operate. I don't know if that's good or bad, but geometric patterns and stuff is definitely a source of inspiration for me as an artist. And it just made sense to kind of decorate. The original walls of these things were just squares, and the bright outline, and it was just kind of empty looking. So I wanted to add a layer of complexity to the graphics.
Now, how did you make vector graphics into a game engine? Because not many game engines really support graphics like that just out of the box.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that's sort of built in. I had to write a script that drew all these lines. I did do it also in, this is done in 3D Game Studio, which is a bit of an older engine that nobody uses anymore. And it only does games for Windows. But it's the game engine I learned on, and I'm not, whenever I've tried to sit down and learn Unity or like C#, it just, my brain doesn't catch stuff very quickly, and I realize, oh, I could make this in 3D Game Studio really fast, and I get lazy and I just do that. I'm not a programmer by like trade. I'm an artist.
Wait a second.
So
Okay.
I can
I want to get to that.
program stuff, but it's a hodgepodge. Like it's a. Okay, here's one of the
I just so look. It's
impossible
like,
geometries.
The non-Euclidean,
Yeah.
which is.
I know we already
wanted to go
encountered
with.
like some sneaky ones, but
Yeah, we've passed
Now-
3 or 4 of them now, but this is one of them.
And
that
that-
really came from a game I played as a kid. Oh,
ooh, oh, I should have probably looked before I jumped, right?
Quite literally.
Always look into the room first. But you got health here, so it should be okay.
Oh. Lucky.
So yeah, there was a game when I was a kid called Realm of Impossibility. And this was a 2D game, and it was just like these little characters, and you had to run them through this maze and escape these zombies and stuff. But they used those drawings of like MC Escher as an inspiration for the 2D environment. So like, it's not so. It's hard to describe, but like if you climbed up a ladder and then walked down this platform and over to this platform, you'd end up at the bottom of the ladder. But the platforms were flat, just visually. So just being able to see that in a game was like really inspiring for me. And I always wanted to do something like that because I love MC Escher and his art. And this is when I started this game, I did not have that in mind. That was something that I added later because I realized, okay, this vector game could also include that non-Euclidean geometry type stuff. And that would be kind of a cool mixture of things. And then, again, like, is that a good design idea? Or am I adding too many, peas into the pod, so to speak? It's harder to market something when there's like 10 new or 10 different concepts that you're trying to mash together. But that's what I wanted to make, and as a solo game developer, I do have that freedom, which is nice.
I mean, being a solo game developer while doing non-Euclidean with geometric, all the words.
Yeah,
it's so. I appreciate it. Like I wanted to play it just because of how different it looked anyway. So personally speaking, I think you're on the right track.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I grabbed a red key, and I remember that there were some red doors previously.
Yes, they should show up on the map there.
Oh yeah, I see one right there.
I see there.
A second outdoor region. So in a way, it's a little bit has that little bit of not necessarily getting power-ups to find things, but getting keys, and then you can backtrack and
there's keys, and there's also weapons that weapon upgrades, and there's I don't want to say items because I think there's just one item that will unlock different areas for you other than the keys.
Oh yeah, you're right. Look at that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, the first dungeon has a few of those red doors also.
Yeah. You see, use my new weapon now. Now, as far as I understand, you're a solo developer. You're pretty much making this almost on your own.
Yeah, basically.
So how do you have time to make these assets, like the graphics, the game itself, the music?
I mean, the game, okay, the music is a different issue, but the game itself took about 1.5 years. So, that wasn't like I was full-time working on it. But it wasn't like, weekends either. It was pretty much every day I would do something, at least a few hours. So, and I work as a freelance designer, for actual money and all that. So, those jobs kind of come and go, and in between those jobs, I'm able to kind of focus a little bit more on the games and stuff. So it's a balancing act. I don't know if I'm succeeding at that 100%, but it's, I have been able to put out a few games, so I'm happy with the results so far.
And then you mentioned that there was something more to the music as well.
Okay, yeah, the music in this game is from a previous game that I made, which generates music. That game is called Anomalies, and it's like it was my first Steam release, and it's basically all of my games kind of sprout out of my other games. So if I want to explain this all, I'll start a little bit further back. I made a game called Star Explorers, right? Which is a space exploration game. It's a lot conceptually like No Man's Sky. And the unfortunate thing was I started it before No Man's Sky existed, but I didn't tell anybody about it. And I suffered the consequences of not telling people about the game.
Because I guess when No Man's Sky got released and you weren't telling anyone or announced.
Yeah, it looks like a clone and, whatever. Lesson learned. While I was working on that game, I was trying to make nebulas in outer space, like these space clouds, basically. And it was all procedurally generated, so I wanted to make them unique for each playthrough, like it would generate different nebula and stuff.
Okay.
And I was trying to come up with a way to do that. So I was getting really bad results at first. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to make a different program and experiment. And so I don't screw up my game. I'm just going to experiment in this other program. And that program evolved into what is now called Anomalies. So it started off as just these kind of tree-like branching sort of things that floated in space. And those, they started as branches because I used little models, but I was going to replace the models with just like a sort of cloud-like image, right? So when you see it from a distance, it looks like a cloud out in space. But these models were kind of neat. They looked like trees branching out in all different directions. And I started just experimenting, like maybe I can make them, move around, and maybe I can make them have different types of segments and different branching patterns. And I made this whole sort of art generating tool. And I said, what if they make noises? Right? And I started adding noises. And at first it sounded like really awful. And I started thinking, okay, what makes it sound good? So I was looking into, frequencies of the what do they call that? The frequency of the sound. And I could assign that in my game engine, like play this audio file, but assign it to this frequency.
Oh, okay, up and down, shifting the pitch up and down.
Yeah, you're shifting the pitch algorithmically, I guess. So once I figured out which frequencies sound good together, now it started making something that sounded kind of like music, which was pretty interesting to me. And I started just like recording these things, and I made like 5 albums of procedurally generated computer music. And so I used those songs in this game.
Okay.
That's my super long explanation of the music.
That kind of, since it's procedurally generated, it kind of gives it that ambient feel that you're not really anticipating like melodies and stuff. It kind of fills the space. Ooh, it got a map. Oh, that's cool.
Right.
How was it like programming this map? Because a lot of first-person shooters, since they're fully 3D, they don't have auto maps. It wasn't recently because Doom had all sectors, so they can make an auto map out of the sectors. But then Quake had to drop it, and later games had to drop it when they went full 3D.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, Quake doesn't have an auto map. Yeah.
Oh, okay, right. I see what you're saying. Yeah, this just kind of takes the model the actual, like if you're standing on this floor tile, right?
Yeah.
That
Okay, it's like a section.
it's just showing the floor. It doesn't show the walls and
Oh
ceiling.
yeah, that yellow right there.
Yeah, that's the
Oh.
actual. It's just like the camera moves up when you hit the map button. It moves up like a 10,000 units, and the floor tile projects. It's like just the outer square up 10,000 units. So you're looking at the same floor tile just way up in space where you can't see the actual map. So it's still the same 3D environment, just up.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, thank you.
It's usable. I've been using it the whole time.
It's a little bit weird, and I don't know how to describe it. It's like I guess it gives you enough information to help.
Yeah.
Did you get stuck? Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Had to wiggle a little bit.
But, yeah, I had a couple of moments where I had no idea what the hell to do, and then once I saw that there's little indicators on the map that kind of tell you where the door stuff is, I got much better at figuring that out.
Okay.
But you have to learn how to
read the map
to do that.
Yeah, it is a bit like Metroid games in that way.
Metroid Prime in particular had a cool vector graphic map that you could explore and figure stuff out with, and it was done that a very similar style, like just the line art.
I mean, I would even go so far as to say that like Doom Eternal and the other Doom, they have like a similar. It's not vector necessarily, but you get that whole. You can move it, you can go in, you can go out, and I really like that because it makes me. It gives you a little more personality to being able to see where you need to go next, and I don't know. I just thought it was a really cool feature.
I noticed some of the playtesters were getting lost, like because the mazes are, they're mazes. They're not like really always easy to navigate. So definitely.
Well, if you're also coming out of impossible places, it makes it a lot harder to determine.
That was one of the challenges with the map. Is like how to represent the impossible geometry in a map. And what I did, I just left those parts out of the map. So there's like a blank area because it can't be described from a top-down perspective because it can't really exist, So I just left them blank and hope nobody notices.
I kind of noticed it, but it didn't take away from it, like at all. I just kind of accepted it and just like, oh, okay. But like, I guess that even in its own universe, it's so impossible. It's just like, yeah, we're not even gonna try it. Like you blink out of existence, and now you're here.
Right.
Yeah, right. Cool. All right, move on.
It's all just clever use of teleporting, right? To remove any mysticism from what's happening here. It's just like two hallways that are exactly the same, one on top of the other. And as you pass through one, you'll teleport up to the other one without any visual clue. So it feels like you just walked up a level without actually going up. For instance, there's a few different types of, impossible situations in the game, but that's the one I use most often.
Yeah, there was I guess a stairwell in particular for one level.
Yeah.
And I just kept going around and around and around. I'm like, oh god, this is gonna suck having to go back down on. And then, not at all. You just jump from the top. I'm like, all right, cool. That's it's a lot easier for me.
Yeah, and so playing earlier, I was like, oh, it's kind of like a Metroidvania with the keys and stuff. But now it's really like a Metroidvania because now you got bombs. Now you have an extra ability now. But it is. Yeah, I think like anyone that's enjoyed Metroid Prime would really enjoy this.
There's even ancient alien lore.
Oh, am I seeing things like I'm seeing like a little curve? On the
that's a filter that I'm using to kind of bend the. I don't know what you would call it.
It's a bit like that PlayStation where they had the nearest point errors where graphics would bend a little bit.
Yeah, because I don't know if I should get into why I put that there, but because it's kind of a long discussion. But I was promoting this as having non-Euclidean geometry.
Okay.
And I was on Reddit, right? And people on Reddit take stuff very seriously, which is fine. I like that. I take stuff seriously too, sometimes.
Oops, what'd I do?
I think I know where you're going.
Oh, no.
No.
Oh, there we go. All right.
Well, now I get to see the death screen.
Yeah, no, I saw. Yeah. Okay, so you're saying the non-Euclidean, and I guess that you're kind of forcing that literal translation onto them, the curvature, right?
Well, that I didn't have the curvature yet, and so.
But that's what I mean. Is that like you're saying it's non-Euclidean? So.
For the viewing audience, I have to explain more, I think. I was touting
I'm not even a math guy. I just love it.
It had these impossible hallways, right?
Okay. Let's get into it. So, MK, Mike and I talked about a little bit. Yeah, we talked about a little bit. So the idea of Euclidean geometry, is that angles are preserved. So any parallel lines will always remain parallel.
Right.
They don't cross each other. But in here, there's aspects where the player ends up being at a different angle, and that would cause parallel lines to cross. So I argue, and we'll shake the game camera, that this is legit non-Euclidean.
Yeah. It's representing non-Euclidean, but what I used to make the levels was Euclidean geometry. I just used a teleporter.
Yes.
And that's what that guy's argument was. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, technically you're right, but from the perspective of the character in the game, it's non-Euclidean, right? Like, it's impossible to have these environments in a Euclidean space.
Okay.
But, I thought, it'd be kind of neat to add some curvature just to shut this guy up.
Yeah, it's basically, all right, you want to complain about it? Let's do it then. Yeah, I love that so much.
Okay, feel free to debate about it in the comments.
Yeah.
Which
yeah, bring it up. Come on, let's see what you got. I'll argue semantics all day, every day.
No, I appreciated the discussion, though, because I'm not a mathematician, so learning about what is considered non-Euclidean and what is not, I found that really interesting. So, because there is a non-Euclidean geometry in reality, which is geometry across the surface of a sphere, for instance. That it's a real non-Euclidean type of geometry.
Yeah, technically speaking, anything on planet Earth is non-Euclidean. It's kind of like, well, now we're talking semantics again, going off of
right.
And that's kind of the whole point of that, and that's why I can't help but laugh. It's a good insider joke. I really like that.
Yeah.
I think we're getting kind of close to wrapping things up, but I did want to ask a couple more things very quickly.
Sure.
First of all, is there anything that, because of the complexity of this game, is there anything that you haven't either been asked or something that you would like to point out that is not usually recognized from the game?
Okay. Well, one of the things I've seen with players is that the first 9 levels seem to follow a pretty standard pattern, and you're collecting these paradox triangles, and you're opening this gate to escape this whatever citadel that you're trapped in. The second half of the game takes place in 2 main areas. There's like a cave system, and then there's a factory. And they don't follow the same pattern. They're different. They're more linear. There's some non-linearity to it, and there's some non-Euclidean stuff, but it's not like as regular. And I made the enemies and the challenges even harder in that second part of the game. And I think people get thrown off by that because they got used to this sort of pattern. And then the second half of the game is like, what the heck is going on? Like,
So we're just touching the tip of the iceberg. After this, it starts getting really strange, you're telling us.
Basically. Well, it gets harder, I guess, is maybe the problem that players have expressed. So, I did add those levels a little later in the game, and they probably didn't get tested as much by my playtesters. So, there is that aspect to it. I was thinking about maybe, cutting out those final levels and adding them as a downloadable free download
or like
an optional thing,
yeah,
and just putting the ending a little earlier. I don't know, this is just, I haven't really been focused on this game because I'm working on another one, but that is the thought process I've been having about this one.
Yeah, it's a bit, leave it as like you unlock it like bonus levels after beating the certain part of the game,
right, something like that. But who knows? I don't know. I don't know if that will happen.
I mean, you segued right into my next question. My personal final question, which was going to be, if there's anything that you're working on that you can tell us about, because I know some people are like, there's,
Definitely. I'm working on it's sort of an old school RPG. It's called Islands of the Caliph. It's set in a fictional Middle Eastern island kingdom. With mythological and folklore and stuff like that, influences. Something from my childhood, playing Might and Magic for the first time. That really open world sort of RPG type adventure. That one stuck with me. Probably that's one of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There was on the Super Nintendo, I played a Might and Magic. I think at Might and Magic 3, it was like Isles of Terra or something.
Yeah. That wasn't actually. I did play Isles of Terra, and my favorite was the first one, the one, Secrets of the Inner Sanctum. But yeah, Isles of Terra for sure, because of the islands. And I wanted to do something that captured. Because as a religion, I'm a Muslim, and I wanted to do something with that, because Islamic culture is really not seen a lot, other than terrorists or whatever in the mainstream media. So I wanted to do something that just kind of combined those different aspects of my life in a cool little RPG game.
Yeah, I can see that your personal experiences of the culture really helping out, bringing out like a unique aspect into the RPG.
Right, yeah, you don't see a lot of that. I mean, there are I guess, what's the one? Prince of Persia kind of has a, that kind of theme and that kind of background.
Until it didn't.
Yeah.
But it was the first one was beautiful. I love that.
Oh, the very first one, yeah, it was just amazing. That I remember playing that back on my old Apple IIc, and I remember passing the the enemy who's like a mirror image of you. Yeah. And I got past that. I figured it out right away. I was very proud of myself. I remember my friend was playing the same. He was like, I can't get past that guy. I was just like, you want me to tell you? I could tell you. He's like, no, don't tell me. I don't remember if I ended up telling him or not, but I just remember that was a pretty cool moment.
That was one of the first games that I ever got on a whim. I was working at Toys R Us at the time in the video game section.
Oh, nice.
It went on sale, and I was like, well, I'm going to use that plus my discount. Got the game, and I was blown away. And
yeah.
That's kind of, I guess, to kind of wrap it up, that's what this reminds me of, is something that you're not used to seeing. Something that has just that little bit of dynamic that is completely different from all the other stuff. And that's why I appreciate the hell out of this game. And I really, really, honestly, really appreciate you coming on here to talk to us about it. I learned a hell of a lot from that.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to beat this game, because now that you told me that there's weirder stuff and more challenging levels, I'm like, okay.
Oh, man, bring it.
Yeah, bring it on.
Interestingly, I just started playing Dark Souls because my computer can't handle the new one, Elden Ring. But my son is playing that on his computer, ironically. And I just thought, okay, I've never played a Dark Souls game, So I got the first one and I started playing it. Man, that's hard. It's like really
Like I
tough.
said, I don't usually like those kinds of things.
Yeah, yeah. So I know the pain that people feel when they just can't get past a certain thing. But yeah, it's fun but challenging for sure.
Now, if people want to buy this game, you have all your games on Steam, right?
I have 4 games on Steam. I have a bunch of other like smaller, unfinished prototype type things on itch.
Okay,
But,
that's perfect for itch.io.
Yeah.
And we can find you on Steam as Schmidt Workshops.
Schmidt Workshops, correct.
All right, well, once again, I'd like to thank you very much for coming onto our show and speaking with us about this. This has been Indie Insights. Mike, is there any last word that you would like to close us off with?
Wishlist Islands of the Caliph on Steam.
I would have gone with non-Euclidean. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Take care.